that would have meant? I mean, she could have had 600 grand in there easily because of compounding growth. How many of you know what compounding growth is? Raise your hand. I don't think that you do. Because all the time I say to investors, what would a good return on your investment be? Oh, 100%. I love make 100%. My father-in-law, unless he makes 100%, it's not a good investment. And I think it's fascinating that people don't differentiate between passive and active returns. Anybody want to volunteer what they think the difference is? You're scared. You think I'm setting you up.
Passive is like rental income.
Passive would be like rental income. Okay? Yeah, I mean, everybody gets that this is someone else, right? Making you money, and this is your sweat equity, right? I like to think of my tenants as my employees, because every day they get up, and pretty much for the first week to 2 weeks of the month, they're working for me to earn their rent money, aren't they? Aren't they essentially my employee, going to their job to earn money to pay me to live in my house? And where I think everyone kind of understands the difference between passive and active, but what people don't understand is what a good return for passive is and what a good return for active is. Does that make sense? Now, I have a 20% ownership in a bar here in town. And it's just a couple blocks from the Super Bowl stadium. In those 10 days of surrounding the Super Bowl, we made $100,000. Now, this is a bar that only makes about $5,000 a month in profit, net profit. Was that active or passive? Passive for me, but what about my partner? That was active. He was like there every day, which is why he gets 80% of it, right? But, he, in the Super Bowl month, he made, like 3 years worth of profit. With his sweat equity, he earned about 150% return in 1 month. But that's because he was doing it, right? If you start a company, start a business, go to your job every day, to make returns in excess of 100% with your own money actively isn't that big of a deal, is it? Don't we all know someone who's done something like that? How about we had a big PGA tournament event here this year. Come on in, grab a seat, guys. We had a PGA event here this year. Where was that? At Crooked Stick. And these two little girls, their grandparents live on the golf course. So they invested $100 in a lemonade stand. And Phil Mickelson came by and gave them $100. Weren't you the one who told me that, Noel? Somebody told me that story. Yeah, Phil Mickelson came by that morning. He saw them there, their little lemonade stand set up in Grandma's backyard on the golf course. Gave them $100. Okay, they made 100% return in the first 20 minutes on their business. Was it active or passive? Active. So great thing. Now, if Grandma would have taxed them for rent for the backyard, that would have been Grandma's passive, child labor laws or something. But active returns in excess of 100% are not. So what? Who cares? Passive returns. If somebody's telling you they'll make you more than 20% passive, look for the pyramid logo on the companies. Look for the words Ponzi in the LLC's name. Because passive returns in excess of 20%, I don't see it. It's a holy grail. It's less than 1% of the time. If you can get a passive return though, in the 8 to 12% range, and have that compound over 10, 15, 25 years, you can retire. Think back to Christy, my human C3PO. Knowing that she's been making like 1.3% passive. Can you see why she took that $170,000 IRA and rolled it over and bought 3 houses from us immediately? And you know how excited it is that she's making 10%? And so I always find that's interesting. You know, I had an investor this week that I was talking to on the phone. And he's like, yeah, you know, if I buy this house from you for 60 grand, I'm going to get 500 a month. So what? 500 is not that much. And this was a man that I know only makes about 80 grand a year. But he doesn't understand what a good return is. And I said, well, it's not the amount of dollars that you make, it's the return that you're making for the amount that you've invested. And I think that, you know, one of the biggest educational hurdles, you can't play the rules of the game like the Mitt Romneys unless you know what a good return is. Does that make sense? Okay. Think about what's one of the biggest benefits of having a self-directed IRA. What's your tax rate? So if I collect $6,000 this year on one of my houses, do I write a check to the government for taxes? Right. I mean, I think at the most fundamental level, many of us don't even understand a lot about taxes. If you've gotten excited about a tax return in the past 3 years, shame on you, you know, because you got excited about loaning the government money for a year. Because what's the interest rate that they pay you when they refund your tax return? Exactly. So if any of you want to, I'll give you 1% in a heartbeat. You know? In fact, if any of you have $100,000, $200,000 in an IRA that you've been making 2% on, I'll secure that with my own house that's free and clear and sign on it with my Social Security card. I'll personally secure that money and I'll double your return. If you want 4% for your 100 grand, you let me know. If you've been making 2, I'll double it. Loan it to me. I'll be happy to do that.